I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment with the city you're watching from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Valerie, and I am 63 years old. I never thought that at my age I would have to stand out in the rain, soaked to the bone, begging my own daughter for a roof over my head. But that's life. It hits you when you least expect it and leaves you breathless. The fire had started at 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up to the smell of smoke filling my lungs and flames already devouring my kitchen. My farm, everything I had built over 40 years, turned to ashes in a matter of hours. The fire department said it was due to an electrical problem in the main barn. 40 years of work, of dreams, of memories, all lost. I didn't have enough insurance. The last few years had been difficult, and I had stopped paying the full policy so I could keep the house afloat. Now, with nothing but the clothes on my back, I had no choice but to turn to my daughter, Holly. I rang the doorbell of her house in the most exclusive residential neighborhood in Los Angeles. It was an impressive mansion, with perfectly manicured lawns and a fountain in the center. Everything paid for with the money of her husband, Ethan, a businessman who had always treated me like something stuck to the sole of his shoe. The door opened and there he was, in his expensive suit and that fake smile I knew so well. "Valerie," he said, without inviting me in. "What are you doing here?" "There was a fire," I explained, trying to stay composed. "I lost the house, everything. I need to stay here for a few days until I can—" Ethan cut me off with a dry laugh. "Here? Are you out of your mind?" "She's my daughter," I said, feeling the rain beginning to soak my blouse. "I just need—" "Holly," he shouted inside. "Your mother is here." My daughter appeared behind him, wearing a silk dress that probably cost more than I made in a month. She looked me up and down with disgust, as if I were a stranger asking for spare change. "Mom, what happened to you? You're all dirty." I told her about the fire, about losing everything. I expected compassion, a hug, any sign that I was still her mother. Instead, she exchanged a look with Ethan. "You can't stay here," my own daughter said, crossing her arms. "This house is very elegant. The neighbors are going to think—" "They're going to think what?" I asked, feeling like I had been slapped. Ethan stepped forward, completely blocking the entrance. "Look, Valerie, we don't want to be cruel, but you have to understand, this is an exclusive residential area. We can't have homeless people here. What are our neighbors, our friends from the club, going to say?" "I'm your wife's mother," I told him, feeling my voice break. "And you're a farmer who lost her little farm," he replied with contempt. "You'll ruin my Persian rug. I don't make space for homeless people in my house." The words hit me like punches. Holly didn't say anything to defend me. She just stood there, nodding as if her husband was right. "Please," I whispered, feeling the tears mix with the rain on my cheeks. "I just need a place to sleep." "Go to a shelter," Ethan said, "or look for some government program for people like you." "People like me?" I repeated, incredulous. "Poor people," he clarified without blinking. "Failures." And then he slammed the door in my face. I stood there, in the increasingly heavy rain, staring at the closed door of my own daughter's house. The sound of my own sobs was lost in the noise of the storm. How had I come to this? How could the little girl I had raised with so much love treat me this way? I walked to the sidewalk, soaked and trembling, not just from the cold, but from the humiliation. I had nowhere to go. I had no money. I had nothing. It was then that I remembered the card. I'd had it in my wallet for years, folded and worn with time. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Marcus Rivers, CEO Rivers Holdings Group. Marcus, my. Marcus, the boy who had arrived at my farm when he was only 8 years old, dirty, scared, and alone in the world. He had been brought from an orphanage as part of an aid program. It was supposed to be temporary, but something in his eyes broke my heart. He was so small, so vulnerable. Just for a few weeks, the social workers had said. Those weeks turned into 10 years. I raised him like my own son. I taught him to work the land, to read, to be a good man. Holly was always jealous of him, always complaining that I paid more attention to the found boy than to her. But Marcus had something special, a brilliant mind and a noble heart that won me over from day one. At 18, he left to study at a university on a full scholarship. He had the best grades in the entire region. Before leaving, he promised me, "Someday, I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me. I swear it on my life." That had been over 20 years ago. I had lost touch with him after he graduated. I only knew, from comments I heard now and then, that he had done very well in business. But I never imagined how well. With the wet card in my hands, I pulled out my old cell phone and dialed the number with trembling fingers. I didn't know if it would still be the same. I didn't know if he would remember me. I didn't know if he would care what had happened to me. The phone rang once, twice. "Hello?" The voice was deeper, more mature, but I recognized it immediately. "Marcus?" I whispered, feeling silly for calling after so many years. There was a pause that felt eternal. "Mom, Valerie?" The way he said Mum broke my heart. After all these years, after everything that had happened, he still called me Mum. "Marcus, I need help." He didn't let me explain further. "Where are you? I'm coming now." As I waited for Marcus under the roof of the nearest bus stop, memories flooded me like inevitable waves. I couldn't help but think about everything that had happened, how we had reached this point where my own daughter closed the door on me while the boy I had taken in from the street was coming to my rescue. Marcus had arrived in my life in the fall of 1995. I was 36 then, a widow for 2 years after my husband died in a tractor accident. Holly was only 11, and I was struggling alone to keep the farm running. A social worker had called, asking if I could temporarily take in a boy from the orphanage. "It's only for a few weeks," she had insisted, "until we find a permanent family for him." When Marcus arrived, he was like a wounded animal. He had been through 3 different foster homes, and everyone had sent him back. "He's troubled," the social worker had warned me. "He doesn't talk much and has nightmares." But I saw something different in his dark eyes. Pain, yes, but also a brilliant intelligence and a desperate need for love. He was small for his 8 years, thin as a rail, with scars on his arms that I preferred not to ask where they came from. The first night he lay awake in his bed, stiff as a board, waiting for me to tell him to leave at any moment. Instead, I sat on the edge of his bed and read him a bedtime story. He cried silently, but he didn't ask me why. Holly hated Marcus from day one. "Why does he have to stay here?" she constantly complained. "He's weird. He doesn't belong in our family." "It's only temporary, my love," I would tell her, not knowing I was lying. But the weeks passed and no one came for Marcus. The social worker would call occasionally, always with excuses. There were no families available. He was a difficult child to place. If I could just keep him a little longer. And I could. Not only could I, but I wanted to. Marcus adapted to life on the farm, as if he had been born for it. He was smart, smarter than any child I had ever known. By age 9, he was managing the accounts better than me. By age 10, he had completely reorganized the irrigation system to make it more efficient. "This boy is going to be someone important someday," my neighbor would tell me when she visited. And I knew it. I felt it in my bones. But Holly grew more and more resentful. "Why can he help you with the numbers and I can't?" she would yell at me when Marcus sat with me in the kitchen to review the bills. "Because you prefer to play with your friends," I would reply, trying to be patient. "Because he's stealing my mum from me," she would burst out, running off to her room. I tried to divide my time equally between the two, but Marcus needed more attention. He had suffered so much in his few years of life that he required constant healing, and besides, he had such a thirst for knowledge that it was impossible to ignore. When Marcus turned 12, I officially adopted him. Holly was 15 then, and her resentment had grown into pure hatred. "He's not my brother," she declared during the celebration. "He never will be." Marcus pretended he didn't care, but I saw how her words hurt him. One night I found him crying in the barn. "Do you think I should leave?" he asked me with a broken voice. "Holly would be happier if I wasn't here." "You are not going anywhere," I said firmly, hugging him. "This is your home. You are my son, just as much as she is my daughter." But Holly never accepted it. In high school, Marcus was the best student in the entire school. Teachers constantly called me to talk about his exceptional potential. "You should consider sending him to a prestigious university," they would tell me. "He has the talent to go very far." Holly, on the other hand, was just barely passing her classes. She was more interested in going out with boys and spending money than in studying. When Marcus won a full scholarship to study business administration at a university in California, Holly exploded. "Of course he gets everything," she screamed. "The perfect son who was never really your son." "Holly, please," I tried to calm her. "No, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of it always being Marcus this, Marcus that. What about me? What about your real daughter?" "You are both my real children," I insisted. "Liar!" she screamed at me with a cruelty I had never seen before. "You've always loved him more. I wish he had never come here." Marcus heard everything from the stairs. That night, he told me that maybe it was better if he went to college and didn't come back. "Don't say that," I pleaded. "This will always be your home." But the damage was done. Marcus went to college, and although he wrote me letters and called me every week, Holly had planted a seed of doubt in him. He started to distance himself, spending his vacations doing professional internships instead of coming home. Holly, meanwhile, met Ethan during her last year of high school. He was 10 years older than her and had enough money to dazzle her. They got married when she turned 20, and ever since then, she had treated me like a burden. "You don't need to work so hard anymore," Ethan would tell me condescendingly when he came to visit. "You should sell this old farm and buy a little house in the suburbs." But I didn't want to sell. This farm was my life, my identity. It was the place where I had raised my children, where I had built my world. Marcus graduated with honors and got a job at a major real estate company in New York. His letters became less frequent, his calls shorter. And although he never stopped sending me money to help with the farm, I could feel him pulling away more and more. The last time I saw him was 10 years ago, when he came for my sister's funeral. He was unrecognizable, wearing an expensive suit, driving a luxury car, with the air of a successful executive. But when he hugged me, he was still my Marcus. "Are you doing okay, Mum?" he had asked, using that name that always melted my heart. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I had lied, because even then the farm was starting to have financial problems. Holly barely spoke to him during the funeral. She had behaved as if he were a stranger, not the brother who had shared her home for 10 years. After that, Marcus returned to his life in New York, and I stayed here, fighting alone to keep the farm afloat, watching my daughter grow more and more ashamed of her humble origins. Now, sitting in the rain, waiting for him to come for me, I wondered if I had done the right thing by calling him. Did I have the right to ask him for help after all these years? Would he still remember the woman who had raised him? The sound of an engine pulled me out of my thoughts. It wasn't a normal car. It was something much more powerful. And then I saw it. The helicopter descended from the grey sky like something out of a movie. The blades cut the air with a deafening roar, creating ripples in the puddles on the street and sending leaves flying in all directions. The neighbours in Holly's exclusive neighbourhood had came out of their houses, some recording with their phones, others simply staring open-mouthed. Never in my life had I seen a helicopter up close, much less one as sleek and black as that one. It had gold lettering on the side that I couldn't read from where I stood, but it looked expensive, very expensive. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest. Was it possible that Marcus had come in that? The shy, scared boy I had raised now had enough money to travel in a private helicopter. The door opened and he stepped out. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. The man walking towards me was tall, elegant, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I earned in a year. His dark hair was perfectly slicked back. He wore expensive sunglasses and moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. But when he took off his glasses and our eyes met, there was my Marcus. The same dark eyes, the same shy smile I remembered from when he was a child. "Mum," he said with a broken voice, and in that moment he was again the 8-year-old boy who had arrived at my farm so many years ago. He ran toward me and hugged me so tightly I thought he would break my bones. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, feeling for the first time in a long time that someone truly loved me. "You're soaked," he murmured in my ear. "How long have you been out here?" "It doesn't matter," I said, clinging to him. "You came. You really came." "Of course I came," he said, pulling back a little to look at me. "You're my mother. I will always come when you need me. Duh." He took off his expensive overcoat and put it over my shoulders. It was cashmere, so soft it felt like a caress. It smelled of his cologne, a masculine and sophisticated scent I didn't recognize. "What exactly happened?" he asked, holding my hands in his. I told him about the fire, about losing the farm, about coming here looking for shelter. When I got to the part where Ethan had slammed the door in my face, I saw his jaw clench and his eyes harden. "They told you what?" he asked, with a voice so cold it gave me chills. "Marcus, I don't want trouble," I said quickly. "I just needed a place to stay." "You are home now," he said firmly, taking my hands. "You will never have to beg anyone for a roof again." At that moment, the door to Holly's house opened. My daughter rushed out, followed by Ethan. They had both changed clothes and looked presentable, as if they had been waiting for this moment. "Excuse me," Holly shouted, approaching with a false smile. "Is there a problem with the noise? The neighbours are complaining about the helicopter." Marcus turned slowly to look at her. He didn't say anything. He just watched her with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Holly," I said nervously, "this is Marcus. Do you remember him?" My daughter's smile immediately vanished. Her eyes darted from Marcus to the helicopter and back to Marcus. "Marcus," she murmured, as if she couldn't believe it. "Marcus Rivers." "Hello, sister," he said in a completely flat voice. There was no love in those words. There was no forgiveness, just a coldness that broke my heart. Ethan stepped forward, extending his hand with that oily smile I knew so well. "What a surprise. I'm Ethan Miller, Holly's husband. I've heard so much about you." Marcus looked at the outstretched hand, but didn't take it. "I doubt that," he said simply. The silence that followed was so tense it could be cut with a knife. Holly was wringing her hands. Ethan had lowered his and looked uncomfortable, and Marcus continued to watch them like a predator studying its prey. "Well," Holly finally said, forcing another smile, "how wonderful that you came to visit Mom. Although maybe you should land somewhere else next time. This is a very exclusive residential neighborhood and—" "I know," Marcus interrupted her. "I know this neighborhood very well." Something in his tone made Holly immediately fall silent. "In fact," Marcus continued, "I know most of the people who live here. They are my clients." "Your clients?" Ethan asked, confused. Marcus smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. "I am the owner of the bank that finances most of the mortgages in this neighborhood, including yours." I watched as all the color drained from Ethan's face. "Your bank?" he stammered. "Rivers Holdings Group," Marcus said calmly. "Maybe you've heard of us. We are one of the largest real estate companies in the country. We also have interests in banking, construction, and urban development." Holly stumbled a little, as if someone had hit her. Are you a millionaire?" she whispered. "A multi-billionaire," Marcus corrected without boasting, as if it were a simple fact. "But that's not the important thing here." He turned to me, and his expression completely softened. "The important thing is that my mother needs help, and I came to give it to her." "Your mother?" Ethan spat, regaining some of his arrogance. "She's not your mother. She's just the woman who raised you for a few years." The change in Marcus was instantaneous and terrifying. His face hardened like stone, and he took a step toward Ethan. Even though Marcus wasn't particularly big, Ethan instinctively backed away. "Be careful," Marcus said, in a voice so low I could barely hear it. "Very careful what you say about my mother." "Marcus," I intervened quickly, putting myself between them. "He's not worth it." He looked at me and took a deep breath, controlling himself. "You're right," he said, gently taking my arm. "He's not worth it." He addressed Holly and Ethan one last time. "By the way," he said with that cold voice again, "you're going to receive a letter from my bank tomorrow morning. You might want to read it carefully." "What kind of letter?" Holly asked with a trembling voice. Marcus smiled again, that smile that didn't reach his eyes. "A review of your loan terms. It seems there have been some irregularities in your payment history and original documentation." I watched Ethan turn completely pale. "But don't worry, Val," Marcus continued. "You'll have plenty of time to clear everything up. Say, 72 hours. 72 hours for what?" Holly asked, with evident panic in her voice. "To decide if you want to keep this house," Marcus said calmly, "or if you prefer to hand it over to me voluntarily before I discover what else you've been hiding." The silence that followed was deafening. All that could be heard was the distant noise of the helicopter and the dripping rain. "Let's go, Mom," Marcus said, putting his arm around my shoulders. "We have a lot to talk about." As we walked toward the helicopter, I heard Holly scream behind us. "Wait! Marcus, wait! We can talk about this." But Marcus didn't turn around. He kept walking forward, shielding me from the rain with his body. "Are you really the owner of their bank?" I asked him as we boarded the helicopter. "Among other things," he said, helping me fasten my seatbelt. "I've been watching this family for years, Mom. I've been waiting for the right moment." "Waiting for what?" Marcus sat down next to me and took my hand. "To show you what the people who rejected you are really worth." As the helicopter rose, I looked down and saw Holly and Ethan standing in their perfect yard, looking up with expressions of absolute horror. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel sorry for my daughter. I felt justice. Marcus's mansion took my breath away. It was like something out of a magazine. Soaring ceilings, huge floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked like works of art. Everything was elegant but warm, sophisticated but welcoming. It wasn't ostentatious like Holly's house, it was refined. "Welcome home," he told me, as an employee helped us off the helicopter in the backyard. He lent me dry clothes, a soft cotton dress and a silk robe, and prepared me hot tea in a fine porcelain cup. We sat in his study, surrounded by books and photographs. I recognized some, photos of his college graduation, of various awards and recognitions, of business events. But in the center of his desk, framed in silver, was a photo of us from the day of his adoption. He was 12 years old and smiling shyly as I hugged him. "I never took it down," he said when he noticed me looking at it. "It's the first thing I see every morning when I come to work." He sat across from me, no longer the successful businessman who had stepped off the helicopter, but my Marcus. He had that serious expression he wore as a child when something worried him deeply. "Mom," he began, "I need to tell you some things I found out about Ethan and Holly." My stomach tightened. The way he said it, his grave tone, let me know that it wouldn't be good news. "What kind of things?" Marcus got up and went to a filing cabinet. He pulled out a thick folder full of documents. "5 years ago, I hired a private investigator to find out how you were doing," he explained, returning to his seat. "Not to spy on you, but because I was worried you wouldn't accept my financial help directly. I wanted to make sure you were okay." I remembered the times I had found money in my mailbox with no return address, the mysterious payments for bills I didn't remember making. "That was you?" "Yes," he admitted. "I paid your mortgage for 3 years without you knowing. I also covered some of your medical and vet bills. But what I discovered during that investigation..." He opened the folder and spread several documents on the coffee table between us. "Ethan was stealing from you, Mum." The words dropped like stones into quiet water. I leaned forward to look at the papers, although most of the numbers and legal terms confused me. "How?" Marcus pointed to several contracts. "Do you remember 6 years ago when you needed to repair the electrical system in the main barn?" I nodded. It had been an expensive repair, almost $10,000. "And do you remember who recommended the contractor to you?" My heart sank. "Ethan," I whispered. "Exactly. He connected you with a company that he owned, although he never told you. He charged you $15,000 for a job that actually cost $6,000. The other $9,000 went straight into his pocket. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach." "But that's not all," Marcus continued, moving other papers. "The loans you took out to improve the livestock fence, the financing for the new water pump, the farm insurance he renewed for you." Every word was like a stab. Everything. Ethan had been involved in everything. "In total," Marcus said in a controlled but furious voice, "over the last 8 years, Ethan stole approximately $150,000 from you through overbilling, hidden commissions, and fraudulent insurance." $150,000. A fortune for someone like me. "Is that why you were having financial problems?" he continued. "Is that why you couldn't pay the full house insurance? Is that why you lost everything in the fire?" I was silent for a long moment, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. "Did Holly know?" I asked finally, although part of me already knew the answer. Marcus nodded gravely. "Here are the bank statements for the joint account she has with Ethan. You can see the deposits that exactly match the dates he scammed you." He showed me a sheet full of numbers. There it was, in black and white. My own daughter had lived in luxury bought with money stolen from my farm. "The pearl necklace she wore at her friend's wedding last year," Marcus said, pointing to a transaction. $5,000. Paid the same day Ethan overcharged you to repair the stable roof. Tears of rage and pain ran down my cheeks. Why? I murmured. Why would they do this to me? Marcus got up and knelt in front of me, taking my hands. Because they thought you would never find out. Because they thought you were just a naive farmer who didn't understand business. Because they didn't respect you. His voice hardened. But they were wrong, because you had someone who does respect you, someone who never stopped watching over you from afar. What are you going to do? I asked him. Marcus stood up and walked toward the window, looking out at his perfectly manicured yard. I already did it, he said calmly. That letter they're going to receive tomorrow is a notification that their mortgage loan has been transferred to Rivers Holdings Group. I gasped. You bought their debt? 3 months ago, he confirmed. As soon as I found out they were having financial difficulties, I bought their mortgage from the original bank. Now they owe me $280,000. And can you do that? Legally? Marcus turned to me with a smile that was not kind at all. When you have as much money as I do, Mum, you can do a lot of things legally, especially when the other people have committed fraud. He walked over to his desk and took out another set of documents. I also have evidence of tax evasion by Ethan. It seems he never reported the income he obtained by scamming you. The Internal Revenue Service would be very interested in seeing this information. Marcus, I said slowly, what exactly do you want from them? He sat down across from me again, but this time his expression was different. There was a hardness in his eyes that I had never seen when he was a child. I want them to return every penny they stole from you, he said calmly, with interest, and I want Holly to admit that she knew what was going on. And if they don't do that, then they will lose the house. Ethan will face criminal charges for fraud, and I will make sure the whole town knows exactly what kind of people they are. His phone rang at that moment. He looked at it and smiled. Speak of the devil, he murmured, showing me the screen. It was Holly. Are you going to answer? I asked him. Of course, he said, pressing the speaker button. Hello, Holly. Marcus. Her voice sounded desperate. We need to talk, please. Come to the house. Why would I want to go back there? Because we're family, she said. And I could hear her voice break. Because we made mistakes and we want to fix them. Marcus looked at me and raised an eyebrow, as if asking me what I wanted to do. Mistakes, he said into the phone. Is that what you call fraud now? There was silence on the other side. Marcus, please, Holly continued, now clearly crying. Just give me a chance to explain. Fine, Marcus said after a moment. But I'm not coming alone. My mother is coming with me. Yes, Holly said quickly. Of course. Whatever you want. Marcus hung up and looked at me. Are you ready to confront your daughter? I thought about all the years of silent humiliations, all the times I had accepted her contempt, how she had closed the door on me when I needed her most. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I'm ready. As we prepared to go back, Marcus placed his hand on my shoulder. Mum, I want you to know something, he told me. No matter what happens today, you will never have to beg for anything again. You will never have to accept scraps from people who don't value you. How can you be so sure? Marcus smiled, and this time it was a genuine smile, full of the love I remembered from when he was a child. Because now you have someone who would fight for you against the whole world. Someone who never forgot that when everyone else abandoned me, you told me I was your son. He hugged me tight, and in that moment I knew that no matter what happened with Holly, I was no longer alone. I had my true son back. When we arrived back at Holly's house, the difference in the atmosphere was palpable. There was no longer arrogance or contempt. The door opened before we could even ring the doorbell, and there was my daughter with eyes swollen from crying and a face distraught with fear. "Mum," she said in a broken voice, reaching out her arms to me. "Thank you for coming." But I didn't move toward her. I stood next to Marcus, feeling for the first time in years that I was in control of the situation. "Holly," I said in a voice I didn't recognize as my own, "I think we need to talk." Ethan appeared behind her, clearly nervous. He had changed out of his expensive suit into casual clothes, but he still looked like what he was, a man who had just realized he had completely underestimated his opponent. "Marcus," Ethan said, trying to regain some of his previous composure, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There was no misunderstanding," Marcus interrupted him with a cold voice. "There was just fraud. A lot of fraud." Holly led us into the living room, the same one where they had held so many parties with money stolen from my farm. Now it felt different, smaller, faker. "Would you like something to drink?" Holly asked nervously. "We are not here for a social visit," I replied, again surprised by my own firmness. "We are here to talk business." Marcus took out his phone and placed it on the coffee table. "I'm going to record this conversation," he announced, "for the legal protection of both parties." I watched Ethan turn pale again. "Is that necessary?" he asked. "Considering that you have been committing fraud against my mother for 8 years," Marcus said calmly. "Yes, it is very necessary." Holly collapsed onto the sofa, finally losing all pretense of control. "Marcus, please," she whispered. "We're family." "Family, so," I repeated, feeling the rage I had been holding back for years finally find its voice. "Did you call closing the door in my face when I lost my house family? Is stealing from me for 8 years family?" "Mum, I didn't know," she began to say. "Liar!" I burst out, standing up. "Marcus showed me the bank statements. I saw every deposit, every purchase you made with my stolen money." Holly started crying for real now, but for the first time in my life, her tears didn't move me. "The pearl necklace," I continued. "The trip to Europe last year. The new car. All that while I couldn't afford the full insurance on my house." I thought," Holly stammered. "You thought what?" I asked, moving closer to her. "You thought I was so stupid I would never notice." Ethan tried to intervene. "Valerie, you have to understand. Business is complicated." Marcus stood up so quickly that Ethan instinctively backed away. "Sit down," Marcus ordered him in a voice that allowed no argument. "And don't speak to my mother like that again." The silence that followed was so tense it could be cut with a knife. Marcus returned to his seat and took out the documents I had seen at his house. "Here are the facts," he said, spreading the papers on the table. "For 8 years, Ethan overcharged for services, invented fake commissions, and sold fraudulent insurance to my mother. The total stolen amounts to $153,000. Holly choked on a sob when she heard the figure. "Holly directly received $42,000 of that money," Marcus continued relentlessly. "Money she knew came from fraud against her own mother." "It's not true," Holly cried, but her voice lacked conviction. Marcus slid a sheet toward her. "Do you want to deny that this is your signature on the receipt for the $5,000 necklace? Dated the same day Ethan charged your mother $8,000 for a repair that cost $3,000. Holly looked at the paper and completely collapsed. "Marcus," Ethan whispered, "what do you want from us?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, completely calm. "I want justice," he said simply. "I want my mother to get back every penny they stole from her, with interest." "How much would that be?" Ethan asked with a trembling voice. $200,000, Marcus replied, or you lose the house." $200,000, Ethan yelled. "That's impossible. We don't have that kind of money." "You should have thought about that before you stole," I replied, finding my voice again. Marcus consulted his expensive watch. "I'm going to give you an option," he said. "You can pay my mother the $200,000 within 30 days, or you can sign the deed to this house, transferring it to her as partial payment." "The house?" Holly whined. "This is our house." "Bought with stolen money," I reminded her. "Every brick, every piece of furniture, every one of your pretty things paid for with my suffering." "Mom, please," Holly pleaded, falling to her knees in front of me. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know that, Ethan." "Yes, you did know," I yelled, unleashing decades of contained pain. "You knew exactly where the money came from, and you didn't care because you've always believed I deserved less than you." "That's not true." "Yes, it is true," I continued, tears of rage running down my cheeks. "Ever since Marcus came into our lives, you've been jealous. Jealous that someone truly loved me. Jealous that someone valued me." "I love you," she started to say. "No," I interrupted her. "You tolerated me. You put up with me when you needed something. But love is what Marcus showed me when he came for me in the rain. Love is what you denied me when I needed it most." Holly continued to cry, but I no longer felt sorry for her. "Where is the money now?" Marcus asked Ethan. Ethan ran his hands through his hair, completely defeated. "We invested it. In the business. In this house. It's not liquid." "Then you have two options," Marcus said, standing up. "You sign the papers, transferring the house to my mother, or you face criminal charges for fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement." "Criminal charges?" Ethan whispered. Marcus nodded. "I already have all the documentation prepared for the district attorney. I'm just waiting for your decision." "But if we sign the house," Holly began. "You'll have to leave," I finished for her, "just like I had to leave when I lost everything." "Where are we going to go?" Holly cried. Marcus shrugged. "That's not my problem, or my mother's." For a moment, no one spoke. All that could be heard was Holly's crying and Ethan's agitated breathing. Finally, Marcus took some documents from his briefcase. "These are the contracts," he said, putting them on the table. "The house is completely transferred to Valerie Rivers." "Rivers?" Holly asked, confused. "My mother is going to legally change her last name," Marcus explained. "She no longer wants to carry the name of the family that betrayed her." Those words fell like a final sentence. I watched Holly understand that she was not only losing her house, but she was losing her mother forever. "You have 24 hours to decide," Marcus said, putting the documents away. "Tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll be back for an answer. If you haven't signed by then, I'm filing the criminal charges on Monday morning." As we walked toward the door, Holly ran after us. "Mom!" she shouted, grabbing my arm. "Please, I'm your daughter." I stopped and looked her in the eyes, seeing for the first time not the daughter I had raised with so much love, but the woman she had become. Selfish, manipulative, cruel. "No," I said with a calm that surprised me. "You are the stranger who closed the door on me when I needed her. My true son is the one who came for me." I pulled my arm out of her grasp and kept walking. "This is not over," Ethan shouted behind us. Marcus turned around one last time. "Yes," he said with that cold voice I now knew. "Yes, it is over. You just haven't realized it yet." As we drove away in Marcus's car, I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I was walking forward, toward justice, toward the family I truly deserved. 6 months later, I am sitting in the yard of my new house, the one that used to be Holly's. watching the flowers I planted grow where her ostentatious fountain once stood. The afternoon sun filters through the trees that Marcus had planted, fruit trees like the ones I had on my lost farm. Holly and Ethan signed the papers that night, 23 hours after Marcus's ultimatum. They came to the house the next day with suitcases and boxes, moving to a small apartment in the less elegant part of Los Angeles. Ethan got a job as a used car salesman. Apparently, when all your business references abandon you because they found out you are a fraud, options are considerably reduced. Holly tried to talk to me the day they left. "Mom," she had said with tears in her eyes, "someday you'll forgive me. I know you will." I had looked at her without anger, without pain, just with a quiet sadness. "There's nothing to forgive," I had replied, "because to forgive, I would first have to care." Those were the last words we exchanged. Now, as I water my new roses, I hear the familiar sound of Marcus's car arriving at the entrance. He comes to have dinner with me every Friday, a tradition we started shortly after I moved here. "Hi, Mum," he says, kissing my cheek. He brings fresh flowers, as always, and a bottle of the wine I like. "How was your week?" I ask him as we walk toward the kitchen. "Busy," he says, loosening his tie. "I closed the purchase of those land lots in Houston. It's going to be a development of family homes for middle-income people." I swell with pride every time he tells me about his projects. Marcus didn't just get rich, he got rich by helping other families have decent homes. "And I have news," he says with a mysterious smile. "What kind of news?" He sits at the kitchen table, a new table we bought together, simple but nice, and takes out his phone. "Do you remember Sarah, the architect at my company?" "Sarah. I've met her at some of Marcus's dinners. An intelligent, kind woman who treats Marcus with the respect and love he deserves." "Of course, what about her?" Marcus shows me a photo on his phone, a woman's hand with a simple but beautiful engagement ring. "Marcus!" I scream, hugging him tight. "That's wonderful!" "I proposed last night," he says, smiling like I hadn't seen him smile since he was a child. "And I wanted to ask you, would you like to plan the wedding with us?" Tears fill my eyes, but they are tears of pure joy. "I would love to," I tell him. "But are you sure Sarah wants an old mother-in-law like me?" Marcus laughs. "Mum, she already considers you family. In fact, she told me the only reason she agreed to marry me is because I come in a package deal with you." We eat dinner in the dining room, the same one where Holly used to host her elegant dinners to impress her snobby friends. Now it's a warm place where Marcus and I share our weeks, our dreams, our plans for the future. "Do you know anything about Holly?" he asks me as we serve dessert. "It's the first time in months you've mentioned her name." "No," I answer honestly, "and I don't want to know." Marcus nods, understanding. "My neighbor told me she's working as a receptionist in a doctor's office," I continue, "and that Ethan lost the car salesman job last month." "Does it make you sad?" Marcus asks me. I think about his question while I cut the apple pie I made that afternoon. "No," I finally answer. "It gives me peace." "Peace?" "Yes," I explain, serving him a generous slice. "For the first time in my life, I don't feel guilty about being happy. I don't feel bad about having nice things. I don't have to justify my existence to anyone." Marcus takes my hand across the table. "I'm glad to hear you say that." After dinner, we go out to the yard. I installed a small seating area here with comfortable chairs and a table for tea. It's my favorite place in the whole house. "Do you regret it?" Marcus asks me suddenly. "Being so hard on her?" It's a question I've asked myself many times over these months. "No," I answer without hesitation. "Why?" "Because for 63 years, I always put the needs of others before my own. I always felt obligated to forgive, to forget, to be the good person who absorbs all the pain to maintain peace. Marcus listens to me attentively. But when you came for me that night in the rain, you gave me something I had never had. I continue. What? The certainty that I deserved to be loved unconditionally, without having to earn that love every day. You always deserved it, he says softly. Maybe, I admit, but I never felt it until you showed it to me. We fall silent for a moment, listening to the sound of the wind in the trees. There's something else I wanted to tell you, Marcus says. What? Sarah and I have been thinking, after the wedding, we'd like to have children. My heart fills with a joy so great I don't know if my chest can contain it. And we'd like our children to grow up here, with you, to have you care for them the way you cared for me. Tears are running down my cheeks now, but they are tears of the deepest happiness. Are you sure? Both of you? Completely, Marcus says. We want them to know that family isn't about blood, it's about love. We want them to grow up with the grandmother who will love them unconditionally. Grandmother, I repeat the word, savoring it. I'm going to be a grandmother. You're going to be the best grandmother in the world, Marcus tells me, hugging me. Later, after Marcus leaves, I stay in the yard a little longer. I look at the house, my house, with its warm lights on and its rooms full of furniture I chose, of memories I want to keep. In my bedroom, on the dresser, I have a new framed photo, Marcus and me the day I signed the house papers, with him hugging me, and both of us smiling as if we had won the lottery. Which, in a way, we did. I don't have photos of Holly. I stored some in a box in the closet, not because I want to look at them, but because they were part of my life, and I'm not going to pretend they never existed. But I don't look at them. I don't miss them. They don't hurt me. That night, before falling asleep, I dial Sarah's number. Valerie? She answers with a cheerful voice. How are you? I'm perfect, darling, I tell her, and I wanted to congratulate you on the engagement. Thank you. I'm so excited. Marcus told me you're going to help us plan the wedding. With pleasure, I reply. But I wanted to ask you something. Anything. Do you mind if we use the yard here for the ceremony? I've been working on the flowers, and I think it will be beautiful by springtime. There is a pause on the other end, and then Sarah answers with an excited voice. Would you really do that for us? Sarah, I tell her with all the love I feel for her, for Marcus, for the family we are building. There is nothing in the world that would make me happier. When I hang up the phone, I lie in my new bed, in my new house, thinking about my new life. It's not the life I had planned when I was young. It's better, because it's a life where I am loved for who I am, not for what I can give. It's a life where I have a son who chose to love me when no one else would. It's a life where I will be a grandmother to children who will grow up knowing they are loved unconditionally. It's a life where I finally learned that true family is not inherited, it's built, and it's a life that is worth every tear I shed to get here. The next day, Marcus brings Sarah to lunch. We spend the afternoon planning the wedding, choosing flowers, deciding on the menu. Sarah calls me Mum for the first time, and when she does, I feel like my heart is going to burst with happiness. 3 months later, on a perfect spring day, I watch my son marry the woman he loves in the garden I planted with my own hands. The guests are all the people who truly love us. His friends from the company, some of my new neighbours, good people who understand what true family means. Holly is not invited. I don't miss her. When the minister asks if anyone has any objections, I look toward the empty chairs where I once thought the people who gave me life would be, and I only feel peace. Marcus hugs me after the ceremony. Thank you, he whispers in my ear. For what? For teaching me that true love is unconditional, for showing me that family is something you choose. Thank you, I reply, for choosing me. That night, after everyone leaves, I stay in the yard where rose petals are now scattered like confetti. In a few months, this same yard will hear the laughter of grandchildren yet to be born. It will be the place where I will teach them to plant flowers, to care for the earth, to understand that the most beautiful things grow when you nurture them with love. I don't know what happened to the woman who gave me life, but I don't care. I know exactly what happened to the woman I decided to be. I finally learned to love myself as much as I loved my true son, and that is more than enough.